Okay, week 5 team tour power rankings. We are going into our final 2 weeks. And here are the rankings from week 5. Number 12, they're still at 12. They're 1-4 record. The asterisk here is because they have still yet to play one of their sets because Sincere has been stalling. So they're down 0-4. Trust me, this set does not affect either of these two teams' rankings. I don't really care honestly who wins. That doesn't really play a part. But I mean, again, I feel like this team, they just don't have enough. I think the problem is this team isn't like horrible. I think all of the people on their team need to be like a seed lower. Like I think they were just drafted a little too early. And they're all like solid players, but I think they're just all kind of having to play up because they got drafted a little too early a lot and ended up having some tough matchups. They also didn't have any of like their low seeds like really turn into super good players like a lot of the teams did, like Ruihan, Clover, Nelson. They didn't really get any of those like hits like Crocs or even Cap. They're all like playing the seed they got drafted for, but they don't really have anybody who's like emerged over what their seed is really supposed to be. Maybe you can argue blankets, but they've just been rough. They've only won 8 sets. And it's just hard for me to put them over any of the teams. I think they're kind of in the tier of their own down at 12, to be honest. Number 11, this one really pains me. My team is in 11th. We were 1-4, 11 and 14 sets, and we went down 2 spots from 9th to 11th. I mean, we're just losing, right? I don't think my team is that bad, honestly. I think we are better than a lot of teams. I don't think we're technically the second worst, but I can't be biased. I have to look at the results. And, you know, we can say as much as we want that we should have won here, we should have won there, but we still didn't. So, looking back, you know, we lose a lot of the swing sets in a lot of Game 5s, Game 7s. Every week has been decided by that so far. But we're losing a lot of Game 7s or Game 5s. I think the matchups have been good. I've looked back every single week so far. We have been favored in every week. All 5 weeks we've been favored, and we have gone 1-4 in those. So people just aren't performing when they need to. Even me, I lost this set, which could have won us the week. So I'm not, immune to criticism here. So, I mean, yeah, just a lot of rough things going on. Beast has won this in the season. Freeze has won this in the season. And it's hard to win sets in Team Tour if you're, 2 of your top 3 seeds are not going to win sets. That's no diss to them. It's just how it has been. The results have just shown that they're just not winning right now. And even some of the bottom seeds have lost some swing sets too. But, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say. Just not winning sets when they gotta win the sets, It comes down to that. Number 10, they were 11th last week. They went up a spot. They did win this week. This is Echo's team. They're 2-3 now. They're 12-13 in sets. This team and the team we'll see at 9 are very similar in ways how they are constructed. If we look at this team, the big issue is their depth is just not that good. They haven't had anybody that's been like super pop off playing super super well. Their team is very very top 3 heavy. They're pretty much every week are relying on like Echo, Cody, and Burt Boy to win like at minimum 2 sets, and then have somebody else kind of win like Cap occasionally or Ambo. Vaughn has not looked very good. He's only won 1 set. He beat Pikes earlier in the season. Mango has won this in the season. Ambo hasn't had a particularly great season. Even Cody and Burt have had their struggles. Echo lost to Hedges. Their matchups have been kind of wonky because of how they've had to orchestrate their benches. So they've been kind of predictable in who they're going to have to play. And again, I think this top 3 is quite good. It's a decent top 3. The depth just isn't showing out. Even the wins Cap has had haven't been super convincing. He played Wolfgang, and I was not super impressed in his play in Wolfgang in week 4. And yeah, week 5 they did get the win. Ambo over Tapir is a solid win. Some would argue Tapir is favored in that, so that's a nice win for Ambo. And Cotty and Burke cleaned up, so you got to give them their credit. That being said, Katarba's team did bench their top two, so that's just how it goes. So they're kind of expected to win this week, but I think they deserve to be over the 1-4 teams pretty much though. Not the best, not the worst. And the team that I have above them, I think is them but better. And that's a team that got a pretty good buff this week with the update. Kyogre's team is in 9th. 3-2. They were in 10th last week. 12-13 in sets. And I say they're constructed the same because again, they kind of have the same issues. If you look at it, their top three are essentially the same, where they're banking a lot on 2 out of the 3 of these people to win a lot of the time. That being said, they did bench their top 2 this week and still beat one of the best, if not the best teams in the league. The other team was also benching their 1-3. But here's my reasoning for having this team under some 2-3 teams. Pretty much, their depth is a super big issue. I did some math and checking, the bottom, for example, them and Violet were very close, okay? Which team goes above which? Doing the math, Violet's bottom 4 seeds have a better record. I think they're 6-8, their bottom 4 seeds, and they are 5-10 over here. So the bottom 4 seeds have actually been on average performing better than these bottom 4 seeds, which makes Violet's team go over them in my opinion, because this team has very similar issues as well. And we'll see that looking at these bottom teams, they have a very normal trend of all of the teams at the top have had certain people pop off. Even Katarba's team. Saga's proving pretty good. Coke has climbed and popped off. Okay. We look at some other good teams. Crocs Are Nice has done super well. This team doesn't particularly have it. They're just really well-rounded, and Wolfgang is performing better than expected, probably. Even Oster is doing super well. Ruihan is doing super well. Damon is playing really well. The other teams have super good people who are performing above average to what they were expected to do, especially the bottom seeds. And a lot of the bottom teams just don't really have that. But either way, they still won, so I still have to move them up a little bit. But I don't have a lot of confidence in this team on average. Even LG, who I think is solid, he's one of their better players, still got taken to Game 5 by Simi, who is not amazing right now. So, that, it's still kind of rough. You definitely want your 4 seed to be winning a lot cleaner versus some 6 seeds. But either way, I just can't really put them above these other 2 and 3 teams because I have more trust in the other teams, even though Kaisim has a better record. Their 3 wins have come against teams that are that bench their 1 seed and their 2 seed, their 1 seed and their 3 seed, and their 1 seed and their 3 seed. So until they can beat a team when they're at their full strength, I just can't, in the right mind, seed them any higher than what I have them now. Number 8 is Violet's team. They were in 6th last week. They have moved down. They're 2-3 and 10-15 in sets. They have struggled. They had a really rough week this week. They got 4-1 by Knob's team, who's also one of the better teams in the league. Very similar issues to Kai's team. Not as bad, because I do trust, I trust Mumph a little bit more, I trust Lyko a little bit more than the bottom seeds. But kind of a very similar issue. Another set that I dug into with this team is, so far, I think their matchups have been kind of not great. Looking at their matchups, the 2 weeks that they've won have been the 2 weeks they've played Requar and Infernal Owl. In the 3 weeks they've lost, they had to have sat at least one of them. So far they've only been able to win when both of them are playing. So there's a silver lining to that, is if you make the playoffs, you're going to have them every week, which is really good. Because, it has been shown so far that if they're both playing, you're going to win probably, because they're both really good people, they're good for their seed. That being said, you got to make the playoffs first. And in this very tough division where they have a lot of good teams that are very competitive, you're probably going to need at least 3 and 4, probably 4 and 3 for a team with bad tiebreakers. So they're going to really win these last 2 weeks if they want to make the playoff push. I think this team is good on paper. Pikes has been underperforming. Mumph has had his struggles. Terry's been performing pretty well. Ved's been performing pretty well. They just need to make it. If this team makes the playoffs, they're going to be scary. But so far they just have bad tiebreakers. They're losing weeks pretty bad. Like, you don't really want a lot of 4-1s if you're trying to have good tiebreakers. And they've been 4-1, I think, twice now, which is not a very good look for playoff contention. Number 7, we have a T-Disc team. 2-3, 13-12. They've been around this spot the whole season. They are in 7th. They were 7th last week. Even before then, they were. This was the lowest they were. They were 10th. But then week 2 they were 8th, and week 1 they were 8th. So they've kind of been hovering around this very mediocre spot, which I think makes a lot of sense. Their draft position also kind of led them here. I feel like a lot of these teams that get this draft position and how the team was constructed leads to a lot of mediocrity, which is, honestly, regular season mediocrity is fine because you kind of just need a spot in the playoffs and anything could happen after that. In terms of how their team has been performing, I mean, they've been playing better recently. They did lose last week. Oned is a big question mark on this team. We'll see how he moves forward. He did beat Equi, who's a solid 1 seed. He lost to XIB, who's a good 1 seed. Oned will be a good question mark to see how consistently he can beat other teams' 1 seeds, and how confident T-Disc will be in throwing Oned versus people like a Rec War level or a Kai level in the playoffs if they're there, or these top players. I'll be very interested to see how T-Disc manages and matches up in the playoffs if they make it there. Because this team has kind of been in a weird spot. Like, Pubos hasn't had the best season. Oscar is playing super well. I think Oscar is undefeated right now or something. He's beaten a lot of good players that are above his seed. PAC-G, he's beaten Month. He's beaten, who else? Let's see. He's beaten Beast. Like, he's performing super well. You can't be mad at all about how Oscar's playing. T-Disc and Oned are both doing pretty solid for their seed. The bottom seeds are kind of questionable. Wombat got a nice win this week, although they still lost. Mirko's been kind of shaky. So yeah, it'll be an interesting question mark to see how this team moves forward. I have them over this team just because I think they've proven more. They've held a lot more closer sets. Their matchups have been slightly better. And I believe in them again. I believe in them a little more than the teams below them. But anything could change. Number 6 is FBL's team, 3-2, 13-12. They were in 8th last week. They moved up all the way to 6. And coming off a win, this team is kind of proven the doubters wrong. I think going to the season, a lot of people had FBL's team kind of lower in terms of like a preseason power ranking. But I mean, they've played pretty well. They lost 2-3 to Hop's team, but they held it close. They were game 7 away with FBL Amza. They beat Equi's team, taking care of business. They took Kai's team when they played Kai and Bleb all the way to game 5 in a spot where Buga probably should have won. And they benched their top 2. They beat 007 in some nice wins. Violet Citizen getting his first win in probably like 6 to 8 months in competitive play. In terms of like team tour competitive play. And now he beat T-Disc again. Like, this team is on a roll. The people are performing pretty well. There's been, like, FBL isn't looked amazing, but, we beat Beast at least, which Beast has been struggling. But so far, I mean, this team is solid. Buga needs to... I think Buga has now switched to Pack 2. We'll see how that favors them in the future. But Clover is showing out pretty well. So it will be interesting. This team has been on a roll. I can't really have them any higher, though, because, again, on paper, they still aren't, like, amazing. But Citizen still has some question marks. XRB, we got to see how good he is in terms of playing, like, the Rec Wars and Kyogres and maybe even Echoes of the World. But XRB, really good, so we'll see how that goes. And I think this is a good spot for them right now. They're a very strong spot to make playoffs. I don't think it's guaranteed, but it's pretty likely if they win one more week, they're probably in. Number 5 is Moose's team. They've stayed at 5 from this week to last week. 3-2 in record for their sets. This team I honestly thought was probably going to be moving down, but I still have more faith in them than FBL's team. And I say this because their bottom seeds are still performing well. This team is very weird to me, though. I'm not super confident on how good I think this team is. I think this update is gonna really hit this team hard. Moose has already kind of been struggling. If Moose can get back and he is better at this meta, they'll be in a good spot. But Moose has been super busy lately. I don't think he's had a lot of time to grind and learn this meta. Then Casil, he just hasn't been playing a lot. The last time I watched him play versus LC, his boards didn't look particularly good. I think LC kind of probably should have won that set if he played slightly better. Because I don't think Casil's boards looked particularly great. X-Rise in a pack crisis. He's usually a pack 1 player. He's been on 2. He's been on 4. He lost to me last week. Didn't look amazing on pack 2. Flip beat Fritz though, you know. Good win for Flip. But their bottom seeds have been pretty consistent. Flip is good. Rurihan's good. S is a very interesting case. S is a pack 1 main. He's not amazing at playing the other packs. I think even he would admit that himself. He plays the pack 1 mirror a lot. But he's not amazing against anything that's not pack 1. And with a lot more people transitioning into pack 2, into pack 4, especially the bottom seeds, I don't know if that will be good for them or not. And we'll have to see if S can start beating packs that aren't 1. Because if you go into the playoffs and teams know, okay, we can target this player because he's not going to play a certain pack, that is not going to be a good case. It's the same thing kind of with T-Disc if people start targeting him on pack 2. But I think T-Disc is kind of avoiding playing pack 1 now, so we'll see how that goes. And Boba is doing Boba things. Playing really good, consistent as a 7 seed. So again, I trust this team's bottom seeds a little bit more. Their top seeds kind of need to pick it up. They've not had a very good season overall as their top 3 seeds. But we'll see how they go. And I think 5 makes a lot of sense for them. Could sadly see some arguments to move them, though. Number 4 is Katarba's team. They were in 3rd last week. They moved down after a loss. 2 and 3. I have this team pretty high for a 2 and 3 team. Again, the week they lost, they did bench their top 2. And they lost Taper set in game 5, so it was very close. I still think this team's a good team. They're super deep. They have the same thing. I mean, I'm not too worried about this team. They just need to make the playoffs. Which I think they can easily do. But I think on paper, this team is super good when they're at full strength. They're super deep. They have Snickers a 5 seed. Coke is a good 4 seed. Gio's been performing well, even though he kind of struggled this week. This team, if they make it to the playoffs, is not a team you want to run into. They're one of the deepest, if not the deepest team in the entire league. They're super good. They just need to win sets. You know, they're losing here and there. You know, catching some weird losses like Snickers versus S. Snickers not supposed to lose that. And just a couple games and we could be looking at this team at maybe 1 instead of 4. That being said, you gotta win when it matters. So we'll see how this team goes moving forward. But I think 4 is a good spot for them. I have a lot of confidence this team will still make the playoffs. And I think this is a good team still. Just gotta make it there. Number 3. Dropping 2 spots. This might shock some people. Semi-professionals, they are 4-1, 14-11 in sets. They've been on top since week 2. They've been in first every single week. And this week, I have them all the way down to 3. Still a good team. That's why they're 3rd. Obviously, they're locked in the playoffs now. And I think they're a good team still. The issue is, I think this team is hitting... the update hit this team pretty hard. I think Anon is kind of in a pack crisis. Noob Skills is still good, but Noob Skills I think is a lot better in the pack 1 mirror. Statistically, if we look back at it, like historically, Noob Skills does a lot better in pack 1 mirrors, which are going to be less likely, or less likely, not going to happen as often now with more people on 2 and 4. He even lost 2 games to Lightmare this week against pack 3. Noob Skills, he's a good player still for sure. I don't think he's bad against the other packs necessarily, but I think he's way better in an isolated pack 1 mirror, which I don't think he's going to be given a lot, especially if people going into the playoffs know that is his weakness, to match him up against some seats. And even like looking at it, a lot of teams have that counterplay to him. T-Disc, they have T-Disc who's been playing on pack 2 a lot more. Crocs are nice, has some mix-ups from Knob's team. Knob might go back to Pack 2. Owl's 2-4. We saw this week, Lights on the Wheel. There's a lot of teams that have a lot of counterplay to noob skills, which will be very interesting to move forward. I'm very curious how people will work their matchups in versus team who they're guaranteed in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure, pretty much at least. So I'm very curious to see how teams match up against them and if they can take advantage of some of their weaknesses in this team. It's also worth noting that I think a lot of this team's success boils down to, can Fluffo beat the 1 and 2 seeds? And right now, Fluffo is also kind of on a downhill spiral mentally about the game. So I'll be interested to see. I know he's not been loving how his performances have been going. Even he thinks he's playing well, but he's losing, which is always very frustrating in this game. So, but this update I think does hurt them even more. Philip used to be a lot of Pack 3. Even Pack 3 wasn't amazing, but he can manage it. He's pretty much having to switch now to Pack 1, which I think he's kind of out of practice in, so we'll see how that goes in the long term. I'm very interested to see how this team moves forward. They're still a good team. They still are 4-1. I still have confidence that they will be a good team. Definitely a team you don't want to run into the playoffs. These people can definitely play super well. Very versatile team. Hard to match up against. But again, they do have their struggles, and I think this update is going to hurt this team, and maybe cost them the season potentially. Number 2, maybe a shocker. And number 2, I have Knob's team. They've moved up 2 spots. They're 3-2, 14-11 in sets, and this team is really good. Okay. I wanted to put this team 1, but I looked at it. I couldn't put them over the team that everybody in chat already knows who I'm talking about. But either way, I don't think you can logically put them 1 just because the other team has been doing so well. But we'll get into that team later. This team is 2, and this team is a strong 2 in my opinion. This team is super, super good. They're super, super deep. Again, they still have their question marks like every other team. Crocs are nice. Has moved up to a 3 seed, and he's lost his back-to-back sets against a 5 seed and against a 3 seed. We'll see where he ends up in the pre-playoff reseeding, and we'll see if he can kind of continue to compete with the top seeds. That'll be an interesting dynamic moving forward, and maybe even moving into like a next season. So that will be an interesting thing. Monkey's been doing solid, Monkey, this isn't taking, I guess we can't take into account Monkey versus Fluffo because I came from another week, the next week. But, Kelby is playing super, super well, way better than an average 4 seed, that's for sure. Will probably be somebody we'll see moving up in the reseeding, I would imagine. And this team, if we look based purely on results, I mean, Pogai has been doing insanely well. K-Tom is very capable of winning sets and won last week. OG's been doing super good, even though it's not super impressive when I see him play. He wins the games, so I can't complain if he wins the games. Kelby's been doing super good. We know how good Crocs has been doing, especially against bottom seeds. I think I got some confidence for him to bounce back. Monkey is super good. I think when the reseeding happens, he'll be really good, especially for his seed. And now, even though he's been kind of struggling here and there, I still think that we know that Nob is a very capable player, and I have faith for him to bounce back. And this team, again, is one of the deepest teams. 1 through 7 have all been performing well. They have nobody on their team that's winless. So, everybody doing super good. Actually, I guess Nob is winless, so I lied. I think Nob is winless, or did he get a win? He got a win, actually, so, okay. I was not lying. He beat Violet, that's right. So, yeah, good team, super deep. Grinds, outperforming. Kelby's doing a lot better than I thought. A lot of people thought he was going to do going to the season. A lot of people questioned the pick of Kelby, thought he was picked too early, and I'm really happy that Kelby's kind of proven people wrong, and he's been playing really well. His only loss this season is to Katarba, and that went all the way to Game 7. Shouts out to Kelby for really outperforming what people expected of him. Number 1 ranked team, everybody already knows. Strawberry Hat Pirates, they moved up 1 spot, 4-1 in their record. 16-18 in sets because of that weird Goose for Sincere set, but again, not a huge difference there. And this team you know, I was looking at it, debating, okay, how do I want to rank these top three? Because, spoiler alert, these are my top three. And, you know, I'm looking, I'm like, okay, well, their only week they've lost came to semi-professionals, which is a team that is one of the best teams. They sat both of their top two players versus that team, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. Yep, they sat both their top two players. No, well, they played Hop, but they sat their 1 and their 3 seed. They still almost won. Rex was a game away, and I think he outplayed the Lakita in that set. They've been performing super well. Damon's one of the best in the game right now. Hop is a very, very strong 2 seed. Dune is getting wins. Goose is the only one this person, but that might change when he plays Sincere. Rex, ever since week 1, week 2, has looked way better than he did before, and he's shown to be like a solid 7 seed. Phoenix, we haven't got to see him a whole lot, but we all know he's a pretty decent 4 seed at worst. And this team is just a good team. Amza's been doing all right. They've almost won week again. They benched their 1 and their 3 seed, and they still almost won it. Every other week has been pretty smooth sailing. I mean, they're just winning. And yeah, so you know, can't really complain. They're just winning. They're taking care of business. They're winning convincingly a lot of the time. You know, they beat Moose's team, who I think is quite strong, and they beat them 4-1, almost 5-0'd them. This week they're 4-0. I mean, there's a very good chance that in their last 10 sets they're going to be 9-1, which is super strong. And they're just playing well. They're managed well. They do matchups nice. I have a lot of confidence in Hop going into the playoffs that he's going to get good matchups for his teams. And everybody's just doing well on their team, except maybe you can argue Goose. But I mean, even Goose took Ruihan to Game 5. And again, we're not sure what's going to happen here, but I think he'll probably be okay. So, just a super good team. And everybody's kind of doing their thing. So, you know, you can't really complain too much. Yeah, so maybe you just got to make sure that they're doing what they're doing right now in the playoffs when that matters. So again, in 12th, sincerely getting with your opinion, that's Equi's team. They've definitely been ranked on average the lowest. I think they've only had 1 week where they were not in last. They stay at 12. Tier 007 Beast team, they go down 2 spots, down to 11. Echo's team, 10. They go up a spot, 2 and 3. Kai's team at 9. They also go up a spot, 3 and 2. Violet's team at 8. They're 2 and 3, down 2 spots from 6th. This team again really got to win if they want to make playoffs. Probably got to go 2 and 0. At number 7, TS, they're 2 and 3, staying in the same spot. Number 6, FBL, 3 and 2, went up 2 spots. They're looking pretty good for playoffs right now. Moose's team, 3 and 2, stayed at the same spot. Again, looking pretty good for playoffs. Number 4, Katarba, 2 and 3. Moved down a spot from 3rd, but still really good. I think they're down. Just, you know, they lost a week, and, you know, Knob's team, I think, moves up for sure. Simi, down 2 spots. I think the updates hurting them a little bit, but they'll still probably be fine. Definitely a team that's going to be very scary in the playoffs. I think the top 3 should be pretty solidified. Number 2, Knob's team, 3 and 2. Moved up 2 spots. One of the deepest teams in the entire league, if not the deepest. And then number 1, of course, Strawberry Hat Pirates. They're just taking care of business, you know. Not a whole lot you can say. They got good pack versatility. They're just a good team. So I'm excited to see how the playoffs go. We're getting there. I think pretty much playoff teams that are solidified. I think Strawberry Hats are in. Semi-professionals are in. And probably Turn 9 Time to Dine has good enough tiebreakers so they'll probably be in. But yeah. And then, of course, we'll be seeing how the playoffs go following weeks and covering all the playoff play. And, yeah, thanks for watching. And, yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in week 6 and so on.